Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our value plays for this week's Open Championship. Gonna break down the bottom end of the Draftkings pricing, do a little bit of dumpster diving for you, hopefully find a few of those diamonds in the rough that we're looking for to save some salary, and hopefully in this absolutely stacked major championship field, go out there and squeeze in an extra 8 or 9K option. When we've got such a premier field, right, you want to play those top end players, but unfortunately for us, we don't have unlimited salary to work with, and luckily DraftKings is giving us a little bit more leeway this week with putting the salaries the whole way down to $5,500. So salary is a little bit softer towards the bottom end, and in fact in this video one of our 4 values is going to be in that 5K range. So trying to take advantage of all of that room that we have and hopefully get to some builds that we couldn't get to regardless of that. So a lot to get into, hopefully a lot of value that we can open up here. Let's go ahead and hop into our first play of the week. At $7,700, we've got our first play in Minwoo Lee, who to this point has been a big game killer. If we take a look at the recent form, he's had some pretty impressive starts over his last few goes, include a T35 last week, T9, T5 there at the US Open. And if we just go ahead and take a look at the Open Championship record, you'll see that he had a T21 last year, did miss the cut in his first start there in 2021 there with the missed cut, but I'm not all that worried about that. Whether it's the Players Championship, whether it's elevated fields, Minwoo has shown an ability to not only top 10, but perhaps even get himself into contention like what we had there at the Players, or sniff potentially a win here in the next year or so. So he's got the upside. He's shown us that he can handle these big boy events, and given that he's very much so used to link style golf course, I really like him here. Last week was one of the better putters in the field. He's obviously a former DP World Tour player that is used to playing on links in fescue type of golf courses, and that showed at the Renaissance Club, and in fact showed the year before that at the Renaissance Club. And I think that T21 that we saw from him there in 2022 is probably a sign of things to come at the Open Championship for his entire career. Not only does he have experience across the pond, but he's also a player that's known for his stingers. I mean, you'll see videos all the time on social media of Minwoo going out there and just ripping that 2-iron, which is exactly how a Rory and a Tiger Woods won their major championships here at Hoylake. Now, this week, I think it's going to play a lot more similar to what we saw for Rory's year, where it was a little bit more receptive, where in fact there was rain for 3 of the 4 rounds. You still saw players go out there and hit a lot of driving irons because the fairways with that link soil still had a little bit of run out to them. But somebody like a Minwoo, especially if it gets real windy and you've got to go out there and hit some of the stingers into the wind, I'm not worried about his ability to flight those. So only 6.6% owned because I've blacked out the rest of the sheet on there, right? It's showing up as red, but compared to other guys around him, he is I'd say like half the ownership of some of the guys around him, like Corey Connors, significantly higher owned. Taylor Gooch, right? Guys like Keegan Bradley, Joaquin Neiman are all in that same sort of level of ownership. So it's not like you're taking a chalky player in a Minwoo Lee, and I think just a year or 2 from now, he's probably going to be an 8K option in this kind of field, maybe even a 9K option if he really does progress into that next tier of player, and probably a lot higher owned too. So I'm buying in early. I like the fact that he has experience over here on these link style golf courses, especially compared to some of his counterparts, and is playing relatively well, right? We take a look at the recent form metrics, you'll see that Minwoo's gaining across the board except with approach play, which is definitely a little bit concerning, but still, I mean, gaining close to a stroke per round off the tee, close to a stroke per round with the putter, damn good around the green player too. I mean, we'd be asking for a lot, right? For him to be gaining across all 4 categories, and to be, some of these just eye-popping shots gained metrics. So we're getting a player in form. We're getting a player at moderate ownership. It's somebody that I think fits the golf course quite well. So next up, we've got ourselves a little cheaper play towards the bottom end of the 7s. Our last 2 plays are going to be exceptionally cheap. They're going to open up a ton of salary. These are more like middle tier, kind of like filler options that you'll have in lineups. But Alex Noren fits that description quite well. just like a Minwoo Lee, if you're looking for somebody that has experience on a link-style golf course, he's going to check that box emphatically. He played on the DP World Tour before becoming a regular on the PGA Tour side, and went out there and got almost all of his professional wins, right? Has had a little bit of experience, a little bit of success on the PGA Tour, but all of his winning, all of his true pedigree has come across seas, and a lot of times at nasty wind courses or also link-style golf courses like we have at Royal Liverpool. So I like that acumen. I like the fact that he's Swedish. He's used to really high wind events growing up over there in Scandinavia. I mean, they get the worst winds of pretty much all of the golf world out there. The recent form metrics are not great. So if you're looking for somebody with recent form, I think you could do a little bit better. Maybe not the best off the tee, but that's very much so on brand for Alex Noren. But gaining on approach, gaining around the green, and gaining with the putter, and right, still gaining 0.7 strokes per round overall. That's good enough for me, right? It's not perfect for him. There are guys around him that you could say are a little bit more solid, right? Gaining across all 4 categories, for example. But you're down here in the 7K range. I'm not looking for a perfect player, right? I'm looking for somebody that has upside, is either shown it before these type of conditions, or potentially fits that kind of mold, right? And with Alex Noren, he's shown that ability in the past. He's playing pretty damn well, right, from fairway in at this point. And if we're going to see a lot of layups, right, if Alex Noren can go out there and just hit a lot of driving irons off the tee, I think that would benefit him. Now, I think the rain, the damp conditions might kind of hurt somebody like him a little bit more than the rest of the field. So for his sake, I'm hoping it's not too damp out there for the 4 rounds, but we'll have to see, right? We're not always going to get perfect conditions for every single player in our player pool, but still somebody based on his track record that I think you'd probably want to consider. In terms of event history, right, this is what we're talking about. This is just at this event, but missed cut last time out. T11, T17, T6 finish, right? All those wins over there on the DP World Tour. The guy clearly likes himself a link-style event, and how could you blame him, right? Growing up on those sort of golf courses. Before we hop into our last 2 plays, I'll remind you to check out my Patreon if you haven't already. On there is where you can access all of the spreadsheets. On here, you can have my modeling, right? I post all of it in terms of course fit. We have recent form rankings, total model rankings that I'm using. Also, all of my projections in terms of ownership, player pool, projected points. To go out there, improve your process, and make your job a little bit easier, right? All the information that I use to do my research process, whether it is for DFS or of course for outrights, is here on the spreadsheet, right? It's all put into one place. Whether you're going to use it just to do some research, right? Go through some of the stats coming in, or to go out there, create your own models, or do even some optimization with that sort of thing. So it's out there for your use. Of course, it's $10 a month. It's a link down below in the description. They do the same kind of sheets here for Showdown for round 2 through 4. We also do prop analysis there on the Patreon too. So your one-stop shop for everything that you need for PGA DFS. Check out the Patreon page if you haven't. Let's move on. Let's get into these last 2 plays, and boy, oh boy, are they cheap. So $6,200 would normally be $200 above the minimum, but because of the kind of slate we're dealing with, it's $700 above the minimum, right? So we're going to have some legit players at a price like $6,200. So I know a lot of the eye candy, a lot of the attention, right, are on some of those 5K golfers, where arguably some of the better value this week is going to be in like this mid to lower end of the 6K range, right? Where we're getting guys that might have been $6,800 to $7,000 before $700 to $800 cheaper. I think this is where a lot of your elite tier GPP winning value is going to come from. And a player that I want to point your attention to would be somebody you might not have seen of late, right? Over there on the Live Tour these days, but playing pretty damn well. He's been very consistent. He's been in contention a few times this year and last year for Live, and going out there grinding a lot of top 15 finishes, which on Live is like the equivalent of like a top 25, maybe a top 30 finish out there on the PGA Tour. Definitely going out there and making the cut there, right, comparatively. And he's had a few weeks, a few rounds specifically, where he's gone out there and shot like 6-7 under par, been on absolute fire. And the tracks historically that Stenson has killed, right? I mean, obviously that near miss at the Open Championship, that duel with Phil Mickelson, he He's had a few other run-ins at Opens. He's had a lot of success at some of the DP World Tour events that he's played over the years. Much like an Alex Noren, he's Swedish, right? He grew up in these sort of conditions on these kind of golf courses, learning how to play the sport. You'd have to think that he's going to be really comfortable out there. And you also like him because he's the king of the 3-wood, right? The guy lays up off the tee all the time anyways. We get him at a track where that's infamous, right? That's a strategy that has been proven to work in the past. You've got to like Henrik even more, right? I mean, that's his thing, and of course that really should feel like home for him, and he's been playing pretty well of late. I think he's not getting nearly enough steam out there. I think people should be pointing him out, right? He's super cheap. He's definitely liable to go out there and make the cut, and at $6,200, I mean, it's hard to say with this kind of pricing situation whether that's going to be enough, right? Him just going out there and making the cut for large field GPPs, but it's at the very least going to be close to, right? I mean, if he goes out there, he top 30s for you, right? Assuming that he's making a decent amount of birdies over the 4 rounds, that's probably GPP, large field GPP viable, right? To go out there top 10 or maybe even take down the whole contest because of how much salary it's opening up top. So it's not just what you're getting in a Henrik Stenson, as is the case with a lot of these value plays, right? You've got to play people at the bottom of the board because of what it buys you at that top end. And by being aggressive with your salary, right, with somebody like a Stenson, it gives you a lot more flexibility in that 8 and 9K range, even that 10K range, than you would have had before, right? If you really want to play, let's say, a Rory McIlroy and a Scotty Scheffler in the same lineup, right? 2 guys that are going to be in that pretty much $12,000 range. You've got to play somebody like a Henrik, or perhaps even the next value play that we're going to get to right now. So our last value, I promised you one 5K option. Now, it's not going to be like $5,500, but it's Marcel Siem, who, believe it or not, guys, remember, he showed up over there at Royal St. George's, right? Was in contention, I believe, through the first 3 rounds. Now, he kind of fell apart over the weekend. That's his thing. Marcel Siem is an extremely aggressive player. He's kind of like the Siwoo Kim of the DP World Tour. If I had to give you a comparison, I know a lot of you out there maybe aren't all that familiar with his game because he does play overseas on the DP World Tour, but in terms of stats, right, he's top 10 on that tour in terms of birdie percentage. In terms of scoring average, he's outside the top 30. So that tells you just how aggressive he is, right? He'll go out there, he'll score, he'll make you some birdies, but he'll also mix in a few bogeys. At somebody at $5,800, right, kind of like a Henrik Stenson, our goal here is to get this guy through to the weekend, right? He's less than $6,000. You'd have to imagine that him even just making the weekend is probably a huge success. Why I think that Marcel Siem specifically is maybe worth some attention down here, and you can see he's getting some attention actually, right? I've got him at 2.6% per ownership, which you would think is pretty low, but comparatively is extremely high compared to the guys around him. The reason why he's getting that attention is if he makes the cut, the guy's going to make a bunch of birdies, right? He's aggressive. He's balls to the wall like a Siwoo Kim. And if we can even just get him those 72 holes, you can bet your ass he's going to go out there and do a little bit of scoring, right? Even if he's mixing in some doubles and triples, finishing in next to last place of the guys that make the cut, it might not matter for us. So it's a weird week. I encourage you guys to maybe be a little bit more willing to take some shots down towards the bottom end of the board, because guys like Stenson would normally be like $6,900. Somebody like a Marcel Siem would probably be like $6,600. I mean, realistically, on a slate with guys down to $6,000, I couldn't see him being like $6,400. He'd have to be like $6,600. So you're just getting an inherent huge discount on a lot of the players down here. And as long as the ownership isn't crazy like we have with these 4 guys, it's worth getting to, especially with what it buys you towards the top end of the board. Alrighty, fellas, that is all we've got for the value plays this week. Before you hopping out of here, show me some love here on the channel. Go ahead, smash that like button for me. And also comment down below your top value priced $8,000 to below on DraftKings. So somebody you're taking to open up some salary. Doesn't have to be a pivot, but hey, if they're giving you some ownership leverage too, that probably helps you in those large field contests. So let me know down below who you guys are thinking towards the bottom of the board. And let's go out there and have ourselves a week, whether it's for outrights, whether it's for DFS, and have some fun with this last major, right? It's our last major here of 2023. Let's make it count. Let's try and make it as enjoyable as humanly possible, and hopefully at the same time go out there and add a little bit to our bankrolls too. So best of luck out there to everyone. Keep an eye out for my fades and sleepers tomorrow. We're also going to do our weekly live stream. That'll be at 7 p.m. at Wednesday evening. So if you've got any specific questions, any players you want to run by me, any strategy notes, we'll look at the weather, we'll look at ownership, Championship. We'll make sure we have all of our P's and Q's checked before lock and ready to go out there and, like I said, have ourselves a week. Until then, guys, best of luck. Smash that like button, comment your top value down below, and I'll see you guys at the live stream tomorrow night.